Welcome to week 15. So there's no Rocky montage again this week, only because I haven't done any training. Because of this cough and chest and infection-y cold thing, and also because we were on holiday. I have to admit, it does. Everything seems to be feeling like it's going backwards. Backwards is not the right word. I feel like I'm starting from square one. At least I will be when I get fit and healthy. No, not fit. When I get healthy. Okay, well. So yeah, I'm ill. I'm not very well at the minute, but I'm also a pretty practical person, and I'm always looking for reasons why I should be a little bit happy about things than perhaps is the obvious. So the first thing is my knee feels pretty good right now. One of the reasons it feels good is because I'm not running on it, which is frustrating because I want to run on it because my knee feels good, but also I can't because I'm not very well. And I've got poorly this side of Christmas, and not in sort of February, March, April time, closer to when I want to be racing next year. And also it's given me a chance to focus on, there are kind of three main areas that I wanted to make improvements in this 52 weeks journey. One was to get slimmer, which hasn't been going very well. One was to get faster and fitter, which was going well, but last couple of weeks obviously hasn't been going particularly well. And then finally focusing on the kind of happiness side of things. So I guess this has given me a chance over the last couple of weeks to focus on the kind of more mental aspects of what happiness is, but from a more practical, pragmatic approach rather than a kind of self-help, airy-fairy kind of hippie approach.
Happiness, happiness, the greatest gift that I possess.
Happiness is the meaning and the purpose of life, the whole aim and the end of human existence. Aristotle's one of the many thinkers over the years who kind of looked into happiness, and his kind of writing thousands of years ago makes for fascinating reading on his kind of thoughts as to what happiness is. One of my favourite thinkers and researchers and readers on happiness is a guy called Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, a Hungarian scientist really, who kind of looked at what happiness is. His work on something called flow, or what we might commonly think of as being in the zone, is where I came across him as a musician, and looking at that space where we lose track of time when we're really in the zone, whether that's playing music or writing, or it could be anything, doing a business deal or anything, that absolute zone. And his research into that fascinates me, and it stems from his looking into what it is that makes us happy as humans. So here's a quote from Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. "It's how people respond to stress that determines whether they will profit from misfortune or be miserable." Yeah, so what does that really mean? I guess that's kind of, it's maybe just a little bit kind of flaky. Perhaps Chris Boardman's slightly more succinct way of looking at it might help us out a bit. You can't always control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond. See, Chris Boardman's one of my heroes. I have him on my wall next to my turbo trainer up there. I was always quite shocked at his kind of response to his successes. He always found them satisfying as a scientist, because he knew what the outcomes should be. If you put in A, B and C, you'll end up with D. But his kind of quote about how you respond to what happens in life is really really the catalyst for me looking into what happiness is. Being a practical person, I'd like to look at it from a scientific perspective, and my reading with Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi kind of led me down this route of looking at what the chemicals, neurochemicals, neurotransmitters and hormones are released when we are happy, and looking at possible triggers. Now, I know I waffle, I know I go off on tangents, so for each of these four neurotransmitters and hormones, I'm going to give myself 60 seconds to try and explain what they are and how we can help to trigger them a little bit. There are four of them. It spells DOSE, D-O-S-E, and you can see what the names of those hormones and neurotransmitters are, and I'm going to endeavour to give myself 60 seconds with each one to try and explain what they are. Okay, so dopamine. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter. It's responsible for reward and anticipation of being rewarded for things that you've done. It can be triggered from moderate exercise, from good sleep, by music, meditation and mindfulness, sunlight, vitamin D, and setting goals. This is probably the most practical thing. Setting small achievable goals per day, where you can write a list perhaps and just achieve small goals. Doesn't matter what it is. Housework. Today I built a bench seat in the kitchen from our old table and finished the workbench behind me in the workshop, and ticked off a few jobs, and that's going to aid your dopamine response. But essentially it's about achieving goals and setting out what it is you want to get and achieving that goal. I've got 9 seconds left. I'm not going to fill it with anything. So yeah, one thing to do, set goals and tick them off as you go. Have you ever met a hugger that is unhappy? It doesn't happen. When people hug, when they have physical contact with people, when they trust people, when they have sex activity with others, when they are relationship building, when they have empathy with other people, they release oxytocin. It's the hormone and neurotransmitter that get released when a woman goes into labour, and it's basically another drug that makes us feel happy with it. It's within our bodies. Endogenous, essentially, that we can trigger. How can we trigger that? Physical touch, so things like hugging, kissing, massage, stroking pets, and kind of cuddling up with cats and dogs, and well, we have a tortoise. Kind of, does that work? Kind of, yeah, I guess it works. Vitamin D and sunlight again. Listening to music, socialising, and again, same as with dopamine, food is a key contributor to that. There are lots of different types of food that I don't have time to go into today. There's my timer. Okay, so serotonin. Serotonin is the neurotransmitter that releases good hormones into your body when you do something that you are good at, when you feel significant or important. The same triggers as with some of the other neurotransmitters apply here. So good foods, certain foods, exercise again, sunlight trigger those things. But one way you can trigger this is to do something that you are good at, something that you feel confident in your ability at. So if you're a good swimmer, go and swim. If you're good at drawing, go and draw. Whatever it is that you're good at, do something that you have that confidence in. Serotonin is the neurotransmitter that SSRIs, or selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or antidepressants, stop the body reabsorbing, so you have more serotonin in your body. Yeah, I've got 11 seconds left. I'm good. This is much better doing it this way and timing myself. 3, 2, 1, now. And finally, endorphins. Endorphins are that runner's high that you hear about. The word endorphin comes from endo, as in the endo being inside our body, as opposed to exogenous, which is external. Endogenous comes from inside our body, and orphin comes from the same body as morphine. So it's a brilliant painkiller, endorphins. Like I say, it comes from that runner's high. Intense exercise, so not moderate exercise like dopamine is triggered by. We have to do intense exercise to get an endorphin response. But we can also get this from eating spicy foods. There are certain triggers in spicy foods. But also laughing. Laughter is good for triggering endorphins in our body. Yeah, and that's pretty much the 4 hormones and neurotransmitters that make us happy. I've got loads of time left. This is like 6 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Killing it. Okay, so a quick summary. I think some of the obvious things that can help us kind of feel better about ourselves. Sunlight or vitamin D that we can get from sunlight will help. Exercise, both moderate and intense exercise. Making achievements happen, so setting a list of goals and achieving those can improve our mood. Socializing, hanging out with people, that's another good way of kind of developing that feeling of inclusion, that empathy that triggers good feelings. But also smiling and laughing ourselves whilst you're doing kind of fairly mundane chores, driving, doing the shopping, what have you. Just smiling can help. Chrissy Wellington's famous for smiling. In fact, her Twitter handle, I think, is Chrissy Smiles. And there is some really good research, lots of different types of research that I initially discovered in a book called 59 Seconds by Professor Richard Wiseman, which is a brilliant self-help book, but based in research. He didn't like self-help books because they're based on old wives' tales, but he set out to write a book which I would seriously recommend you that you look at, where people were set certain tasks when they were asked to hold a pencil between their teeth, and certain tasks when they were asked to hold a pencil between their lips. And the people that are holding the pencil between their teeth enjoyed the tasks more because that's triggering the smile muscles in their face. So there's lots of things you can do, but just generally smiling whilst you're doing things can bring out the sunshine in your life a little bit. I'm going to finish up with one more quote, which is often attributed to Aristotle. Incorrectly. It's a guy called Will Durant. I won't go into the whys and wherefores. I use this as an example at university as to how things can go down a rabbit hole if you don't check your sources properly. But essentially, the quote is that we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is a habit, not an act. This is one of my favourite quotes. Essentially, we are what we do over and over again. So if we're pretty pessimistic, then or if we're particularly lazy, or if we tend to look on the downside of life, or if we tend to be inactive, then that's what we become. And if that's the case, then everything you do is done excellently, and it becomes a habit, not an act. And surely that applies to anything. Happiness is a habit, not an act, also. So you can make that something that becomes part of your day-to-day life. So just generally kind of smiling through your day, being a little bit more kind of touchy-feely in an appropriate way, with people shaking hands, putting your hand on their shoulder if it's appropriate. That kind of stuff. Generally going out of your way to socialise and talk to people. All these things can generally just bring out a little bit of happiness in your lives. Just being kind of present in my kids' existence, rather than just saying yeah whatever, and actually listening to what it is they're saying, it kind of brings me a little bit more joy than I thought it would. Not normally anyway. Minecraft thing is kind of wearing a bit thin. Hopefully this time next week I hope to have done some training, but anyway, I hope I haven't waffled on too much this week, but these are just things that interest me. I can talk about these things tirelessly because it's something that I look at a lot at university level. So if you are interested in any of these particular topics and beyond, particularly things like flow and that state of zone, which is really interesting to us as athletes as well, then please, just drop me a message. I can get in touch and lead you down the route of finding some more resources. Anyway, see you in week 16 and have a good week.